Hi everyone, Mrs. Below here. In this video, I'm just continuing from where I left off, talking about sex-linked traits, specifically those that are found on the X chromosome. So in this video, the previous one, I was talking about color blindness, which is a sex-linked trait. It is specifically X-linked recessive, meaning that it is found on the X chromosome and it's a recessive trait. So in a female, you would need both copies of the recessive. So something like this, 2 lowercase b's, in order to be colorblind. However, a male only has one X, so he would only need one copy of that trait in order to display colorblindness. This is why it's so much more common in males versus females. There are also X-linked dominant traits, and you'll come across some of that in your homework. Here's another example of an X-linked, this one's also recessive, in fruit flies, actually eye color, believe it or not. If you look up a picture of fruit flies, most of them, I think you guys are familiar with them having red eyes, but some of them can have the white eyes, okay? So capital R is the dominant trait for red, and then lowercase r is the recessive trait for white. So this is how 2 flies that both have red eyes, which is the dominant trait, can have an offspring that displays the recessive trait, and that's usually if the female is what we call a carrier. So she's carrying the recessive trait and she's not displaying it herself. However, she passes it on to a male and she happens to give him that X chromosome, then he would display that trait. So again, this is why X-linked recessive traits are more common in males. Like this right here, this is a male fly because he's XY. This is why it's so much more common in males versus females. And this is how, in a lot of families, a female could be carrying a trait and not know it and pass it on to her son, who then could display the trait. So like I said, there are those were X-linked recessive traits, color blindness, and then eye color in flies. But like I said, there are some X-linked dominant traits. You'll have some questions on this in your homework. So for these traits, a female, let me switch colors here so you can see, a female and a male, as long as either one of them has the capital letter, they would display the trait. So this one's more like kind of a 50-50 chance. In males and females, there's really no preference because it's a dominant trait. So for a female, either one of these females or this male, they would all have the trait. The only way to be normal for a male or female, so these would be normal, and this would have the trait, whatever that is, okay? This is a genetic disorder that can cause medical problems with skin. So I would almost say that this would probably be actually more common in females because there's a chance, I guess they have more, maybe a little bit more of a chance, but otherwise I think it's more probably split like 50-50. So there's really no preference for it being dominant in males or more prevalent in males or females. Because as long as you have the capital letter, you would display that trait, whether you're male or female. This particular one, it's actually lethal in males. So even if this happened, this male right here would actually end up in a miscarriage. So probably the only people that you would be able to see it in anyway would be females that have the trait then. So that's an example of an X-linked dominant trait, although there are definitely not as many of those out there. I would definitely say there's a lot more X-linked recessive traits out there. Very few X-linked dominant traits, but they do exist. All right, so I'm going to do a Punnett square to get some practice with this. So we're going to go back to that color blindness, which is, remember, a recessive X-linked trait. So it says complete a cross between a woman. So woman would be XX, who is a carrier. So we're going to use the letter B, okay? So remember, carrier means that she's carrying it, but she's not displaying it. And color blindness is recessive. So if she's a carrier, that means she would be heterozygous. She's carrying the trait for color blindness, which is recessive, but she's not colorblind herself. And then we're going to cross that with a man. So we're going to put the male here on the side, who is normal, meaning he is not colorblind. So if he's not colorblind, and if color blindness is recessive, then he must have a capital letter. Okay? So a female carrier would be this, and this would be a normal male. A colorblind, so here are just the other options. Male would be this, okay, because he would have the recessive trait. He would be colorblind. A colorblind female would have to have both recessives. And another normal female who is not a carrier would have both normal. So this is a normal female who is what we wouldn't call a carrier. This female we're calling a carrier because she is carrying the recessive trait. All right, so let's go ahead and fill in this cross. So you're going to notice whenever we do these, so this is quite literally why it's a 50-50 chance you have a boy or girl for a child, because each parent can only pass on one chromosome to their offspring. Females can only give X's. Males pretty much determine the sex of the offspring. They can give an X or a Y. So this top half right here are females, XX. This bottom half right here are males, which are XY. So if we're just asking about what is the chance they will have a colorblind child, so I'm asking out of the 4, okay? So out of all 4 of these children, who is colorblind? Well, this one's a normal female, this one's a normal female. They both have the capital letter, because remember, colorblind is recessive. This is a normal male. This guy, that is a male that is colorblind. So a 1 out of 4 chance would be 25%. Now these other questions are getting more specific, so they're asking about the children, male or female. What is the chance their daughter will be colorblind? Well, there's only 2 females, right? So out of those 2 females, what is the chance that their daughter will be colorblind? Well, neither one of these females are colorblind. So that would be a 0 out of 2 chance, or 0%. However, now it's saying what is the chance their son will be colorblind? So again, out of 2. There's 2 boys here. This one is normal. This one would be colorblind. So it would be a 1 out of 2 chance, or a 50% chance they would have a colorblind son. So just pay attention to if I'm asking about a son versus a daughter or all the children. The last thing I just wanted to mention was male pattern baldness. This is something that is usually discussed as an X-linked recessive trait. So guys, sorry, usually you have to look at your mom's side of the family to see if you're going to be bald or not when you're older. And yes, there is a very strong link between males, whether or not they're going to go bald. There's a strong link between that and being bald later in life and the X chromosome, which comes from the mother's side. However, there's a lot of other things that could also influence it as well. It's just a interesting piece of information. And then for your homework, you are going to work on the sex-linked inheritance worksheet here. You can use your notes to answer all these questions. The first page, you really have to think about why when you're answering the questions. But there's also this Amoeba Sisters video here that you could watch that would help you a little bit as well.